Being as a CIO, what are the responsibilities that you have to cater to?
From a technology stack, from a infrastructure perspective, from a hosting, whatever it might be, you naturally align to this is best of breed, this is what we should invest in.
Being into the leadership, how does the people first approach mentors?
I've probably focused more on being open and honest and therefore transparent with those that I work with and those that I work for and those that work to take a company, an organization, a program forward.
In this edition of the Executive Outlook, we are joined by Stuart, an accomplished COO, CTO, CIO, and advisor. With experience across both private and public sectors, Stuart has led digital first initiatives and built high performing teams through people first leadership and data driven strategies. Welcome, Stuart.
Thank you, Isha. I appreciate those kind words. And yes, I've been a C-suite operator for over a decade now, covering everything from operations and delivery, but also legacy CIO roles as well. So looking forward to discussing various things with you today on the podcast.
Thank you so much. So, I want to understand your journey, how you started, and how you came to the position of CIO, CDO, and other C-suite executives. Yeah.
So in the UK at the time when I was graduating from university, I moved into a graduate scheme and very much thought that finance background was sensible option to take, accounting qualification as a way forward. I think that's imperative for anybody who wants to aspire to be in a leadership role, managerial and then leadership role at a later date. But I felt a passion for the change and delivery side of projects and BAU and started out again in the sort of performance improvement element with a financial bias and moved into that change management. So worked on a plethora of projects across public and private sector, got great expertise across a number of sectors, which I think is fantastic when you're at a young age to have that breadth of experience and exposure. I moved into delivery sphere. In that journey, there's a number of major programs and headline projects that you deliver, as well as the BAU side so that you can add consistent value, but also practice your familiarization with the latest trends and current offerings from product suites with the major tech players. And that's really key, I think, to keeping relevant with where the market's heading, but also understanding what you define as best practice. Most recently, sort of settled in the COO, CIO, CDO space and tried to add as much value as possible for specific clients and really solve pain points for them and add value at the same time. I think the market now has got to a point where if you can't demonstrate you're adding value and you can't explicitly solve pain points within organizations, I think you're going to struggle in the sort of AI data-driven world we now live in.
That's so true. So, you mentioned about your experience in the C-suite. I want to understand, being as a CIO, what are the responsibilities that you have to cater to?
It's a really good question because I think there's a natural tendency to always want best practice and always want the latest, most current offerings from a technology stack, from a infrastructure perspective, from a hosting, whatever it might be. You naturally align to this is best of breed, this is what we should invest in. But again, it's understanding at that board level what are the problems you're trying to solve collectively and where is the strategic direction of the organization going. Because sometimes that view of a tech stack and an infrastructure and a solution is so far removed from where you currently are, it's unattainable. It's not a realistic strategy in a 24, 36 month period. And actually, you probably have to be a lot more pragmatic about your pathway to get there and pick phasing of improvements where you move from, in the olden days, it would be on-prem to cloud, and now it's sort of SaaS to AI adoption across the piece. So that sounds good, but if you don't have the foundations to build on, you're just exposing your weaknesses further. So actually everything has to move up at the same time. You can't just prioritize one area over another because you leave yourself in quite a weak state. And obviously you have to take all the people along that journey with them. So not everybody around the table has the same passions and beliefs of where the strategy should be interpreted. And also, everybody at a board level is always fighting over the pockets of funding to go and do various investment activities. So it's always competitive, albeit it should be collaborative.
And being into the leadership, how does the people first approach matters?
I've always been meritocratic by nature, and sometimes you can consider that naive because that's not necessarily how the world of business works. But actually, I've probably focused more on being open and honest and therefore transparent with those that I work with and those that I work for, decide to take a company, an organization, a program forward, because otherwise you can't build that integrity and have that credibility where you're trying to get to. A successful organization has worked without taking the people with them. You can have the best bit of technology, you can have the most effective solutions in the marketplace, but if you don't take the people with you, get them brought in, engaged as the key stakeholders, then you're going to struggle to retain your top talent, but also sustain it and make it grow, as well as add new talent to it as you complement it with hires along that journey. And you end up a workforce that is not motivated, that is then causes a bigger pain problem than the solution or the technology one you had originally.
Okay. And you were talking about SaaS to AI migration, and we need to make sure our foundations are right. So, what do you think? Where do you see the biggest opportunities for the organizations today as we talk into the data and AI world?
Yeah, it's a fascinating subject because every week there seems to be a new piece of AI that can come to fruition and solve another pain point that can solve another problem. You've got the sort of engineering development teams that have gone from being the experts into low code, no code. AI can make me a developer overnight. Through to what was originally data challenges of having the foundations there, and that's everything from security, compliance, data quality, data integrity, having that set up to be able to do data better, and from a BI reporting analytics layer through to is now AI can solve everything. Well, yes and no, because you have to have those foundational blocks established from both the people, process, technology perspective, as well as your data to be able to then leverage AI with the right use cases to make it add any value to your current organization or your current problems. It's no good just taking a bolt on or an extension that isn't actually going to solve an internal challenge or client requirement because it's currently on a LinkedIn feed or it's something that you've seen in the news that can do lots of wonderful things, voice activation, whatever it might be. You need to have that foundational level stable, secure, and have the speed within it to then build from it to have true benefit of AI considerations within the different areas of your portfolio.
Yeah. So, another question, which one is your favorite AI tool?
So again, with a people hat on and a people bias, I I very much like seeing how AI can help from the recruitment side. If you think of the basics of where organizations struggle, and a lot of that is sort of metrics around time to hire, time to recruit, securing candidates, candidate pipeline, all the sort of ATS recruitment people bits on talent management. For me, AI can really help share a pre-sift by getting the values, the behaviors, and the aptitudes there from a CV point of view. Because with the best sort of will in the world, most CVs are sort of generic, AI developed, ATS compliant, but actually if you can ascertain some of these values and behaviors, are they aligned to the organization's wants and needs? That makes a massive difference for the cultural fit and the likelihood of them being retained, passing probation, whatever it might be. And so to thread that through from a recruitment process with the AI elements is imperative because you de-risk your investment. And for me, that's something that needs to be, leveraged across the piece because you then have that security of you know what you get when you hire, and you also know what works for them and what works for you to get the maximum value out of those individuals that join or decide to join your company or your team.
So, I have got a very interesting use case here, and believe me, I have explored this thing with one of my friends and partner. So what they were doing, he's actually advising one company who has built the interview assistant, right? So we tried it out with our resources also. So the AI will ask you the question based upon your resume. It is the dynamic question plus if you give the job descriptions to them, so he will gonna ask the questions accordingly. And then at the end, all the summary, what's the logical, what's the coding score, what's the behavioral score, not behavior, majorly into the logical aptitude coding, what are different scores. So AI was able to give that things, and that was so easy because right right now the challenge is that who will gonna take the interview, and when we give them the job subscription, we give them the templates, still we will not able to handle the quality of it what we want to have it. So you have mentioned a really exciting use cases for automation of the recruitment plus this inbuilt of that how we can take the AI based interviews that I have already seen as a result of it, and it is really helpful.
Yeah, point on that. You take that benefit of the technology advancement, but you also need to have that sort of old school realism of like a face to face second or final round where you physically meet the person where possible. You actually have that ability to see them, view their body language, experience their mannerisms, and therefore you can then validate what my reality on the AI scoring, but also the YouTube piece as well. So it's you want nothing more than somebody who's scored very highly at sort of an AI stage or a virtual round to then physically not meet those expectations. So it's really important you have that safeguard too, but to speed up that process to get to that point, absolutely the AI adoption, and there's a number of providers that have that sort of expertise that can make really condense down that time to recruit a window.
That's true. I mean, at least the initial screening of that person, which HR takes, right? That okay, do you know this technology or not? The initial discussion, and then the new discussions that should be like the next levels to understand the behavior, to understand how the person's values are, to understand these things. Then definitely, I mean, one to one, face to face interaction is very, very important because that is a game changer because every single person brings out something in themselves and can, adds the value in the organization. So to understand those values, we need to have a personal touch with.
And it's involving the right areas of the business too. So for me, yes, somebody could be technical and pass a technical assessment, but actually, how do they collaborate? How are they cohesive with other business capability areas? So to have that wider involvement in the interview process, not have a massive panel, but to have different people with different backgrounds at the interview process, it's really important to have that mix so that you get different perspectives when you come to the hiring cycle.
Okay, so can you share me some real case study from your career which has led to a major change while you were working on it, and any lessons you want to share from that?
For me, one of the most important things about having that high integrity and authenticity when you try to be transparent, where possible, where permissible, within organizations and businesses, is do as you say and say as you do. And for me, that's very important when everything from the sales cycle where you're converting a high value deal and you've attained a margin and you've made a renewal and you've done an extension, and therefore internally you've also pre-agreed to reward and recognize the contribution that employees have made to that. So I've had two or three occasions in my career where at a corporate level the industry is very happy that they've managed to sort out a high value renewal and secure professional services fees, whatever it might be, but actually then not pass that on to the people that have done most of that work and also contributed the most to it, which is sort of breaking your promise, which ethically it causes problems because you'll then trigger all of the people issues that you've tried to mitigate and prevent previously. So I've got people into a position and a team where we've delivered fantastic value to a client. We've done everything where we've secured the renewal or the extension or net new. Therefore, promises have been broken to those individuals where recognition and reward was supposed to be on the back of that. And therefore, what happens is that the talent that can't leave is then frustrated and performs less receptively. It completely destabilizes the business unit and causes lots of problems when you have the high attrition and the exit rate and lack of sustaining your best talent, especially if you put a lot of initiatives in place whereby you're trying to retain specialist skills or talent that you know has a premium in the market. So it just makes your life so much more difficult, and the trust is broken. It's very difficult to re-engage, motivate, and ultimately, as and when they're able to retain that talent you never wanted to consider losing. So another people example, but fundamentally, if you get that people element right, you are set up to succeed. If you get that people element wrong, or you do damage to that people element, you're always going to have problems, and there's always going to be an impact on financial as well as non-financial elements.
All right. And you are into the advisory role, right? So I want to understand a company with an advisor and a company without an advisor. What are the differences?
So in traditional sense, you have a board with non-exec directors that would be very prominent in the industry and the market, could be known to the leadership team, and have expertise that would add a lot of value, and that hasn't changed, right? That's still there. I think the advisory space is when you have people in their capability. They cover so many facets of business acumen that they add immense value from a multitude of advisory opportunities within one role, and therefore over a period of time can add repeated value, but also have the practical as well as the theoretical experience to know what good looks like, how to get to high performing teams, whatever it might be that you're trying to achieve. More often than not, you either don't want to pay for and or can't attract that level from a perm PAYE perspective, and therefore it's imperative you get that advisory council to come in, work with leadership, but having that autonomy to really be true advisory rather be curtailed with day-to-day perm activity. Now, there is always an overlap, there's always a blurring of the lines, but if you can consistently add value, demonstrate the benefits of what you're trying to do, but also have that strategic element rather than always tactical, makes a big difference, because you're then able to demonstrate what a 24, 36 month view looks like rather than the next 6 months. And that's where, if you think of normal performance metrics and appraisal cycles, everyone's thinking of the half year, the quarterly performance, not necessarily medium to long term. And actually, the viability of the business, the organisation, is actually medium to long term. Because if you don't get that bit right, you're going to fail in the short term anyway, rather than just looking at the short to medium term. So I've always took a very architectural view to solving problems and having that sustainability approach to let's do things once, let's do things right first time with a lean background, but also let's make things sustainable so that actually we don't have to revisit them in 24, 36, 48 months time. Let's put in place the foundations that we can actually build on, grow and scale. And very few people can do that in a non-advisory capacity because they're constrained with the normal sort of perm PAYE cycle.
So basically, with the strategy, we know what's the roadmap we need to follow, and then it is like implementation of that. So that is the change.
End to end in technical terms, right? It's not just a nice Canva presentation. It's not just a PPT that's done well. It's somebody who can do everything that you see on the slides. It's somebody who's been there, seen there, and done it, and got the T-shirts of every slide. And it's somebody that knows how you get from A to B to C, not just from a textbook, but has done it several times over. And when you come to solving either an internal challenge or a client requirement, because they are all linked to that, and therefore you have to have that ability to understand the interdependencies, but understand also the constraints that you're facing to get to that point, but also escalate and flag within reason risks and issues that are prohibiting the organisation or the business from growing.
Everyone needs a coach, right?
Well, I think what we've got here, and certainly in the leadership space, in the C-suite, and this is probably where the advisory piece has grown, or fractional, whatever you want to call it, in recent years, is you very much got the coup and the CFO role, normally looking like more of a hybrid role, and you've also got the coup and the CIO role coming to fruition and becoming more cohesive. CTO role has always managed to sort of stay independent, because they have that technical tacit experience. But again, you have CTO and CIO role again where there's sort of an overlap. So there's been a consolidation of those C-suite roles. But in turn, you then have to be able to demonstrate that you have the required skills of the dual role to therefore do a role. And that's where I think it's been quite interesting in recent years.
So at the end, I want to ask that one piece of advice you would want to give to the leaders who are trying to balance people, processes, and technology.
Yeah, it's its own network of fellow founders, peers, actors, managing directors, leaders, been successful, either exited or multiple exits. It's that credibility piece. So if you're unsure or if you're not 100% brought in or engaged on the options that you've been appraised of, seek out those ones that you rate in the industry that you know of and make sure that they you have that connection or you have that ability to be introduced to them, to run things through, run ideas through. There's nothing more credible and powerful than somebody that's plus 5 years from where you're currently at and knows what you're going to have to go through to get there. And also use them as a soundboard, use them as a true sort of confidential conversation of like, what happens if I do this? How can I explore that? What happened to you when you went through this? So somebody that's exited, somebody that's done it several times over, somebody that's been in their shoes, it really will resonate and give them the confidence to either take a decision or make a different decision, but then believe in it. You get guidance, right, with this, and because somewhere they have solved the challenge, so you can take the experience from them and you can do it without making a mistake sometimes. It's all about managing that risk. You're absolutely right. It's de-risking either a level of investment or a commitment or a program that you're looking to fund or whatever it might be. And it comes down to what's the ROI for the organization or the business or the founder? What's the risk profile and what's the benefits? And if you don't have that coverage where you can answer those questions competently and believe in what you're saying, then you can't proceed with something. Now, the other point is that sort of coaching and mentoring network again. So it's not just at the founder or the MD level where they need that network. It's at every level. You need to have 2 or 3 very good coaches and mentors that help you get to where you're trying to get to, but also give you that ability to brainstorm and collaborate on what's worked for them, what hasn't worked for them too, so that at every level you're getting the best and naturally concocted best practice. And for me, that's been really powerful. Definitely. All right. So that is all I wanted to ask today. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and insights on leadership and transformation. And I think your perspective helped